And he's like, what?
Wow.
And he's like, what? I did? I wrote your theme song? He's like, yeah. Africa. And now, and Nile was like, couldn't tell him that it's not uh Africa. It's
Africa. This podcast is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about how you got to where you are now.
amazing. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I did read, are you originally from New York?
I am. I'm from New York, grew up in Queens, and then went to school there, and then moved out to LA in 13, 14.
Okay. Okay. What was it like growing up in you said Queens?
Yeah, in Queens. I'm first generation American. My mom is from Romania and my dad is from the Ukraine.
Okay.
And it was amazing growing up in Queens. It really, I think, it shaped a lot of who I am, even musically, because it was just such a melting pot and so many cultures in one small place.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how did you get into music? Do you have music in your family at all? Parents, siblings?
My mom, they were from Romania, like immigrants here. So she didn't really pursue it, but she has a really good voice, actually. And my dad kind of put my sister and I in piano lessons early on, sort of because he wanted us to pick it up, but also kind of just to see if we would like click with it, how it is with kids. And
sure.
And that was became kind of our escape, and my sister and I. And so they weren't professional musicians or didn't really write and didn't really know their talents, but I think that they had it somewhere in there, so
did you end up playing piano through what, elementary school, middle school, high school at all, or?
Yeah, all throughout. Like my sister took piano lessons first and she, clicked with it. We didn't really want to practice at that age. You know how it is, but no, not at all. But she just had that kind of natural thing with it. And then I'm 2 years younger than her. And I just, would go in on her lessons and bang on the piano. This is all hearsay, by the way. This is what I was told. I don't remember. But and kind of, clunk on the keys. And then about 3 years old or 4 years old, I started, Russian style classical piano. It was really rigid and, kind of strict, stick to the notes, stick to the whatever's in front of you. And then I remember just seeing Alicia Keys come out with I keep on falling and all that. And I was like, in middle school maybe or whatever. And I was like, oh, I need to do that. So that's kind of started
Alicia Keys started it.
Alicia Keys started the whole thing for me.
Okay. When did you start writing songs? Is it around that same time? Was that seeing her? Was it like, okay, this is something I could do?
Sort of, yeah. I kind of was always making up my own songs. The piano teacher that I had, he was amazing. He ended up being my mom, my parents divorced, and he ended up being my mom's fiance basically for my whole life. They never got married, but they stayed together. He passed away during COVID, but he was like my mentor and he would always make up his own music and I loved it. And so I remember being like 7 or 8 and like being like, I want to do that. And so I started making up my own piano songs. Really, they were almost like classical or jazz or just improv, whatever. And then when I saw Alicia Keys sing that, I kind of was like, oh, you could put like words and you could like, bring in the piano with singing, because I always loved singing anyway. And then that's when I started writing songs and just poems and I just kind of went all in and just that's how I escaped in my head, during school or whatever. That was like my little thing. Yeah.
When did you start showing people your songs?
You know, it was when YouTube like started like happening, and I remember people getting signed off of YouTube, and I got like a one of those Skype little like Logitech webcam things for
Mm-hmm.
I saved up and got that thing, and then I was like, I'm gonna make my own like YouTube videos, and I started putting up my songs on YouTube. And it was like this, you know, I think back to that time, and there was such a like, you know, it's kind of how I view people on TikTok now,
Uh-huh.
where there's such a liberation in just like as we get older, we overthink, and we like, you know, judge everything we do with such like a harsh criticism, even just to ourselves in our own head. And back then it was just like, I'm just gonna do this. Whatever happens, happens. And that's kind of how I view, you know, like TikTok now. It's like
Uh-huh.
small version, like shorter versions of that, but just like bits, and just throw them up there. And it would be cool. Like people would say, "Oh, can you do a song more like this?" And I would write that the next week and put it up. And
Oh, wow.
you know, and also covers, and just it was fun. It was
Did
cool.
you start to build like a fan base on YouTube?
Yeah, I started to kind of build, you know, a world for myself on YouTube, and then um I played shows like in the Village. I don't know where you're based, but in New York, it's like, you know, the Bitter End and like all these like
Uh-huh.
clubs. And yeah, yeah, I did.
And
It
did
was
you ended up going to what, Clyde Davis for
yeah,
college?
yep. I went to Clive. I didn't stay long. It's so funny, you know, at the time, I just wanted to just jump in to
Uh-huh.
music. And so I took a leave of absence, and the dean of my school was this guy Jeff Rabhan, who at the time, or maybe a little before or after, managed Kelly Clarkson. And then
Wow.
kind of was full circle, because then I came out here. I remember going to his office and being like, I'm going to take a leave of absence and I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I still think about, it'd be cool to one day kind of finish that off, because it was really cool. It was a cool program, and you know, it was fun.
What made you want to go? Did you have like an opportunity for a gig in LA, or why'd you decide to take the year of absence?
It happened, so you know, like it's so funny, like it happened one thing kind of after the other, flew into the, you know, flowed into the other thing. Like at the time it was just coming out here to meet these writers who were, you know, on everything at the time, especially on Beyonce, on Rihanna, like all this stuff. And I
Mhm.
never knew that um like writing was a career. Like I was just singing like in my head. I was
Mhm.
just a singer, and came out here and I signed kind of a deal with them. They found me on YouTube and messaged me, because there was this site called Hits Daily Double, which was like a art finding new artists like blog. It was
Mhm.
like when blogs were like the thing.
Okay.
Perez Hilton and like all this stuff.
Sure.
Before Instagram, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so they flew me out, and I ended up doing a deal with them. And then that ended up going to, then I showcased for LA Reid at Epic Records. And then that ended up being my label. Then I made a record out here for 2 years. And then I got dropped. The label kind of changed. And
Uh-huh.
this is the whole story. But basically, it was like one thing kind of led into the other. And before I knew it, I was like, whoa, I've been out here for 2 years. And then started writing for people. And then, oh, I've been out here for 4 years. And then I started writing. And now I'm going on like 9 years.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's so weird, like to think of how, you know, like one thing kind of always led to another out here. And I still am like, oh, maybe I'll like do this and then do like move back to New York for a little, or like do, like I kind of have always sort of been, you know, in the mindset of like the universe kind of brings you to where you're supposed to be.
Mhm.
So
So when you got that, message on YouTube to come out to LA, that must have been a pretty big deal for you.
yeah, it was kind of like, I nobody I knew had ever been to LA. Like my family, nobody had really traveled. Like once they came from, I mean, we've been places, but never that far.
Hmm.
Even, you know, at the time, it was just, to me, it was more just like, I've always been very one track minded. And it was just like, yeah, that's where I'm going. Like I'm doing that, you know?
Hmm.
And yeah, it, you know, when you have that kind of passion and you have something that you really want to do, sometimes you just jump in, you just go feet first. You don't really know. I never really knew what my next move would be, but I always was like, well, I have this, I have my skills. I'm going to be down for whatever comes my way. Like I taught music in the beginning. I like, you kind of do it, you know? And I think that's that was to me the beauty of LA too, is that anything you wanted to do, you could find a way to do it if you just kind of dig in, you know,
Hmm.
for sure.
Did you sign with Epic Records before you started writing for other people, or so like how
Yeah.
did your career go? Okay, so because you put out a record under Jessica Ashley, right?
Yeah. I put I put a record under Jessica Ashley like during that era in college. And
Okay.
then yeah, I didn't even know that writing for other people. I mean, I always would read like the notes on CDs as a kid and be like, oh, produced by Max Martin, or produced by like, you know, and be like, oh, that's cool, like I wonder who that is. And I would watch endless YouTube videos of artists in the studio. So I
Hmm.
kind of knew the idea of a producer, but I just didn't know. Yeah, my first cut was during my time at Epic through someone who knew another artist at Epic. So it it was kind of, that kind of started everything.
What was
Yeah.
your first cut?
It's funny, it was her name, and that she's like an amazing artist singer that you may know, or she's a 90s like diva. She's like sung with Whitney Houston. Her name is Deborah Cox. She sings this song called Nobody's Supposed to Be Here. It was like a huge record.
Hmm.
Um, and it's funny because I'm writing with her again because I love her so much. Um, and it was a song called Kinda Miss You, produced by the Rascals at the time. And it was like I was working with everybody who was in sort of like, I was working with Neo, I was working with um just like a bunch of R&B pop
Hmm.
writers. And like really picking up on what they were doing and how they were doing it. And um yeah, so that was my first cut.
So once you said that, did you say that you kind of parted ways with the label at one point with
So
Epic?
yeah, like it was kind of, it was weird. It was like we were, you know, and at the time it was like gut wrenching to me. I was like, it's over for me. I was like 20 years old or something. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, it's over. Like I'm just gonna whatever, like move back to New York. And I did for 3 months, and then came back out here again. Like something pulled me out here. I was like, okay, come back out here. And then I kind of never left. Like then I was writing left and right and meeting people and um just kind of finding my way again.
Because you moved back to LA to really just pursue songwriting, right? You weren't putting a project out as an artist.
No, I was just gonna pursue songwriting. I didn't really know where my artistry was gonna go. And, you know, it was like when you're in that transition time and you're just sort of seeing where you're at. And it was almost like a recharge for me.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it was really, I kind of needed that soul cleansing. That's what it kind of, it brought me back out here. And through writing, I found my own identity again, and then was able to kind of continue, you know.
Hmm. So between the Jessica Ashley project and then now Harloe, it was just what is that when you wrote cuts for like Britney Spears and Celine Dion and all those artists and Kelly Clarkson? I know you've written songs
Yeah,
for.
I that's kind of when I did it, is
Hmm.
I came back out here. I parted ways with Epic. Um, I hadn't really found my identity as Harlow yet. And I was like, I did a writing camp in Sweden for this artist there. And I saw the name Harloe on a storefront too. And I had been talking about the name Harloe for a while, and I just wanted an identity change. Like, it's
Mhm.
funny, I just needed, I'm very emotional and empathetic, and so I take on people's energies, and I like, you know, it was just kind of weighing me down, that old vibe, and having, had done that, been there, done that, and I was like, what's next? And and then it kind of came to me, and ever since then I sort of felt stronger. It's like the name gave me like a, a confidence.
Mhm.
And yeah, that ever since then, that's kind of the time when I was writing, and decided to do that and start releasing songs again.
Was there like a particular moment that you're like, you know what, I really want to start my own project again and get away from just
Yeah,
writing for other people?
yeah, I think it was a lot of, mm, there were many things, but I felt like I had so much to say, and I got to a place of like self-acceptance where I was like, no matter what happens, I'm gonna be okay. And I want to share my story in my own words too, alongside, parallel to this.
Mhm.
And there were some songs that no artist cut, and they were just, and all writers will say this, like, they just sit on your laptop, and there's like, and there, some of them will be your favorite songs, and you think, oh my god, like, they want that song, like, cool, great, but oh my god, this one is like the one, like, this is
Mhm.
like, this is that special sauce. And you're like, oh my god, like, well, you can't, like, every artist is different, and every human connects to a different song. And I thought to myself, well, I guess I need to, someone's got to sing it, so maybe it's, this is, maybe it's telling me that I got to sing it.
Mhm.
And so that's, it started with like one song like that, and then another and another, and then yeah.
Was there a particular song that took off and kind of brought you to the next
Yeah,
level and kind of validated you as an artist?
yeah, I think I, you know, I did, um this song, I wrote this song, just piano vocal, called All This Love.
Mhm.
And I did it, actually, I was just writing with him the other day, with one of my close friends, and he's like an amazing producer and writer named Stuart Crichton. He's Scottish, but like lived in Australia. He's like the coolest, heaviest accent you've ever heard in your life. And we wrote this song also with Tommy Lee James, another writer from Nashville. I think
Mhm.
he's from, and it was just so simple. And I had gone through a breakup, and uh of like a long time, and I was just like finding myself again out here writing for others, and came into the studio that day, and I was like, Stuart, like, I understand that me and this, this guy, like, we're done, but what do I do with all this love? Like, do you just save it for your next person? Do you like box it away? Do you like literally save it for when it rains in LA? It's funny because it's raining here now. And and we wrote this song in like 30 minutes, just sat at the piano and wrote to him in this cheap hotel, thought a little bit of shit, like, just started. And then he was like, I'm gonna like, we're getting this to like we gotta get this out there. And we did. And then they were like, we want to keep your vocal. I had the name already, but I just didn't, I hadn't released something in a long time.
Mhm.
And like, we're keeping your vocal. His manager, Robin Schultz, was like, we're doing this, da da da. And we did. And the record kind of took off, especially in Europe. And like, it went gold.
That's
And
huge.
that's, yeah, it was really, for me, it was very monumental because it was an example of me writing about my true feelings that nobody else exactly would take on exactly that way, because it was so personal. And
Mhm.
then it sort of showed me that if you follow your gut, you follow the moment. Yeah.
I love that. And you put
Yeah.
a record out, what, this year?
I
2021, is that your
I
EP?
yeah, I just put a record, I've been just kind of putting out singles, and my last one is featuring Nile Rodgers, uh,
Wow.
which is really, really cool. We became friends, like that's like another random, we became friends. I like ran into him at Abbey Road. It was like, again,
That's
right,
crazy in itself,
right,
right?
writing for others. Yeah. And friend of mine was like, I've got off the plane, this collaborator I worked on my last project with, Fred Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, come to the studio now. It was like, I just landed, and I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Like, long flight, LA to Europe, not
Mm-hmm.
sure, you know.
Sure.
And then he's like, just come now. I was like, what if we start tomorrow morning? He's like, right now, Jessica, come right now. And I was like, okay, cool. Got there, see Nile like across like the control room, and I'm like, oh my God, like, I gotta find a way to talk to him.
Sure.
And so anyway, and the whole story of how we met is funny, but I don't want to ramble on. But
Go ahead. I don't know if you have time.
okay,
I'd love to hear
so,
it.
I saw him across the control room. Me and Fred were like, and also I think Naughty Boy was already there. He's like another amazing writer and producer.
Uh-huh.
And we're just like all like starstruck a little bit, and like, how do we, like, he was just jamming, his guitar was out, like, it was just so freaking cool. And
Mm-hmm.
then how do we get him in here? Me and Fred had this like plan to like blast the song that we were working on, which was Overthinking. The song is called Overthinking. I was overthinking, which was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we get him in? Like, let's blast it so that he either has to like drop what he's doing and come in and tell us to like shut the hell up. Yeah, or like interfere with his session, or we have to make it so good that he's like, what are they working on?
Right. I want to get involved.
I'll get involved.
Right.
So we blasted it. I don't know which of the two it was. Like, either he wanted to get involved or either he like was just disturbed. But he did come in. He came in without his guitar though. So I was like, oh. And then we just started jamming and like talking and whatever. And he's like, what are you guys working on with? I was like, can we play it for you? Like, do you have an opinion on it? He goes, I always have an opinion. And I was like, dope.
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool. So he sits down and he like tells us basically that what we were working on the song Overthinking, our chorus ended up being the bridge that people hear on it, which is not a chorus. And he was right. He sat down, he's like, you don't have a chorus. And I was like, okay. And then he's like, what are you trying to say? And I was like, I'm overthinking and da. And I started going on this whole like tangent. And he's like, what if it's so simple? What if it's, I'm overthinking over you? And I was like, that's amazing. And so when I sang it, it really like clicked in, and we just wrote this whole chorus in like 15 minutes. And he started telling me all these stories about, I have endless stories from him about him playing for Nelson Mandela at like the big like festival, and Nelson saying at backstage, like, thank you, Nile, for writing our theme song for Africa. And he's like, what?
Wow.
And he's like, what? I did? I wrote your theme song? He's like, yeah, Africa. And Nile was like, couldn't tell him that it's not Africa. It's
Africa.
freak out.
Right.
So to this day, he's like, he goes there and he plays Africa. Like, he goes crazy. Everyone goes, Africa, and like all this stuff, like his stories and his energy, and like, anyway, it was so cool. Yeah, I have a show tonight actually here in LA, and like, I'm just so excited to play that song. Like, that's always my favorite one to play. So,
Where are you playing tonight?
it's for this showcase called Breaking Sound.
I think I saw something on your Instagram.
Yeah, they do a lot of shows. I'm really excited. I've been, performing a lot again, especially after all the, what we've all endured last year.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you're also playing with is it Chapel Roan on the show too? Yeah, I've interviewed her. She's a great
Awesome.
singer.
I've never met her, but I'm just like excited to be around like talented artists. It's great.
That's
It's really
amazing.
cool.
I did see on your Instagram too, you playing the guitar. Is that something you break out quite often or no?
I play it. I play it every show. I bring
I
it out.
love it.
The last show I did a few weeks ago, we like did this like cover of Lionel Richie All Night Long, and I brought out the guitar, and then I always throw it at the end. I do a little shred on my song Rivers Run Dry. I'll like just bring it out and do a little solo.
I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So is overthinking going to be a part of a full project?
Yeah, so I'm kind of working on it now. I don't have the exact, I'm sussing out what I want it to feel like in terms of if it's like a side and a B side, or I'll have more updates soon. I'm like working on it now, but it's always going to be more music and, more collaborations. Like I really enjoy that aspect of making music.
I love it.
So yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, I appreciate your time today and good luck at your show
Yeah.
tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I do have one more quick question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yes, I do. I mean, I think you just I follow it. I try to follow it every day. It's just put your heart out there, and like if I've learned anything, and I'm still always trying to learn everything, it's like don't if you're kicking down the door one way and it's not budging, take a break from that way and just kind of go a different way, because I think the universe, and I sound hippy dippy, but the universe responds to just momentum. So I really believe that, like, if you just kind of put in that effort and you keep going, if one way is not working, like just kind of find a different angle, maybe reach out to a different collaborator, maybe take a break from that and just book a live show, or maybe like there's because that will keep you inspired. And once you stay inspired, you stay in that energy of like being on a high place, just in feeling good about yourself, then you open up other opportunities. So keep trying to find your bits of inspiration and dig other and budge other doors if one's not breaking down, because that mean it might not be the right time for that one.